Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf. It's Sunday again, so it's time for another Books Weekly, my weekly video in which I discuss the books that I've either finished from a previous week or read last week or started last week. And this week's books were all about journey, long journeys, probably because I've been on the train a lot myself and my suitcase got stolen with lots of books in it. But anyway. Back to the books. The first book is a book that I finished from previous week, and that is Becky Chambers' The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. The book is about a journey, a long journey on a spaceship in the future. And we encounter many non-human sapiens, as they are called in the book, artificial intelligence also, and like I said in my previous Books Weekly, because I was halfway through then already, I really loved the imagination of the author. The way the worlds are built, the various sapiens, how they are introduced, how they are described with all the quirks and specialties, and that is fantastic and really inventive, funny, even hilarious at times. But I also mentioned last week that what I did not like as much in the book was the main plot, and that didn't change when I finished it this week. The main plot is quite slow, very predictable at times, and I am a plot-focused reader, so I didn't enjoy that. The book is almost like a short story collection of this long trip to the small angry planet, and then a little bit, 1/3 about what happens when they reach the planet. And you encounter, they have various stops on the way, and something happens during these stops and even on the way. And these are stories in themselves that have nothing to do with the main plot. And those stories, those short stories, are really great and lovely to read. But if you want to read the book, don't expect a fast-paced space opera-like story, because that's not what the book is about. It's about the journey, it's about the people, the sapiens, the culture, the politics during that journey, and the various characters and their backgrounds. So if you like that kind of book, then I would certainly recommend The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I've enjoyed it because it's so, the imagination is so fantastic, but the plot-wise it was a bit of a disappointment. But I liked The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet well enough, especially the imagination of the cultures and the various non-human sapiens, that I picked up right after the second book in the series, although it's not a series in the sense that one plot is followed through, but the next book that came out beginning of October, and that is A Closed and Common Orbit. And I really love that book. In this book we focus on two characters, both of which we have encountered in the previous book, Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and one is Sidra, which is an artificial intelligence, and the other one is Pepper, a technician. The book alternates in chapters between Sidra's journey to find her way as an artificial intelligence, and Pepper. In those pieces we learn about her background as Jane and how she grew up and what happened to her. And I thought, because it's more plot focused than the first book, I like this book better. But I also think if you loved Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, just because it's not so plot focused, you might not enjoy Close and Common Orbit as much. I think that there are two kinds of readers that will enjoy each book. And I'm definitely falling into the category of liking the second book much more than the first book. One of the criticisms that I've heard about the second book is that the story of Jane, or Pepper, is about her background, her childhood, and it's very heartbreaking how she grew up, but we already know that she will get out of this horrible situation because we encounter her in the other part of the book with Cedra, the artificial intelligence. I didn't think that was a problem at all, that we already know that the story will end with Jane becoming Pepper and being able to escape the horrible circumstances she grew up in. And I tried to think about how I could explain why it didn't bother me. And I was thinking of a movie which you probably have seen, although the younger ones within my audience might not know, but it's Apollo 13. Apollo 13 is a movie about what happened with Apollo 13, which was supposed to go to the moon but had an explosion and couldn't go to the moon. And then there was the problem of getting the spaceship and the crew back. And we all know that they will come back because it's based on a real life story. And we know that Apollo 13 was rescued and they all survived. And still, the movie has you in suspense, and you are on the really worrying with the crew and what will happen. So I don't think the fact that before you watch a movie or read a book, you know that it will all work out in the end is a problem if the story is interesting enough. And I thought the backstory of Pepper or Jane is really fantastic and inventive, as is all of Becky Chambers' work. So I enjoyed the book immensely, more than, as I said, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I can recommend it to those people who, like me, felt the first book lacked a bit of a main plot. But if you are expecting the same kind of short snippets of stories in various places, then you will be disappointed. So I guess take your pick, but for me, A Closed and Common Orbit was a fantastic read. The next book I read was Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's second novel. It came out in 2006, and that is Half of a Yellow Sun. I read this for a Goodreads book club run by Max from Well Done Books, reading Adichie with me. So we read all three novels of Adichie. We read Purple Hibiscus in October, Half of the Yellow Sun now in November, and we will read Americana in December. And the book Half of a Yellow Sun is, as the title indicates, set just before and during the Biafran Independence War. So the southeast region of Nigeria declared independence in the 60s from Nigeria, and the war that happened afterwards. And as we all know, today there is no independent Republic of Biafra, so we know that they didn't succeed in their independence. That is the background of the book, which is really interesting because although old as I am, I do remember vaguely from my childhood in the late 60s the hunger and the genocide during the Biafran War. But it's not something, a history that I'm really familiar with or know about a lot. So it was really interesting and fantastic to read about that. That backdrop is made concrete by 4 or 5 main characters. One Englishman, Richard, and 4 Nigerians, that is Ugwu, the houseboy of Odinogbo, and Odinogbo's girlfriend Olana, and Olana's twin sister Kainene, and Richard is her boyfriend. So we have 2 couples and Ugwu, the houseboy. And we follow those characters through the war, before and after, and I thought the character development and what they encounter and how they interact with each other and experience the war was really interesting. The book is structurally divided into chapters that are set in the early 60s, so just before the war or when the war started, and in the late 60s. And I did not like that, especially in the beginning when we have the first chapters, I have to say, in the early 60s, and then we switch to the late 60s, and then back to the early 60s, we learn something that was a bit of a question mark in the first part of the late 60s chapters. And I felt cheated in a way. I thought this was unnecessary, an unnecessary structural trick to make the book more interesting, which is not necessary, I thought, because the history and the characters are interesting enough. So I did not enjoy that, and that was, I guess, the main reason why I didn't give the book 4 stars on Goodreads, but only, quote-unquote, 3.5. But that's just me. The writing is beautiful, the story is interesting, the characters are interesting, especially the way that Adichie is able to pinpoint what happens to us during a war, how we do things that we would normally not do. Even good people do things that they would normally not do, and that is all really worthwhile. So just forget about my very personal miffiness about the structural trick and read the book, because it's certainly worthwhile. And then on to the last book. That is a book that I haven't even started yet. I will start this weekend, and that's Liz Moore, Heft. If you've seen my previous Books Weekly, I've gushed about The Unseen World by Liz Moore. I hadn't heard about Liz Moore, a contemporary author born in 1983 in Boston, and Heft is her most known novel. Well, not to me, obviously, because I missed that, as I miss many things book-related. But anyway, I loved The Unseen World so much that I want to read more of Liz Moore, so that's why I picked up Heft and will start reading today, hopefully. I only know what's on the blurb, that Heft is about Arthur, an overweight retired professor, his former student Charlene, and her son Kel. And after a decade of silence, as it says on the blurb, Arthur gets a letter from Charlene asking for help with her son. So that's all I know. Like I said, I picked it up because I want to read more of Liz Moore's books. So I'm really looking forward to starting this one. So this was it for this week's Books Weekly. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And as always, leave comments if you want to, because I really like to talk to you in the comments. And I'll see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.